Hey, it's Justin Goff from Copy Accelerator, and I am here with Tiana, one of the amazing copywriters that in the last couple of years, she went from doing about 5K a month as a copywriter to now regularly having $17,000 months. Pretty amazing kind of uptick for her. And she's only written copy for about 2.5 years. So to kind of excel that quickly is amazing, which is why I wanted to have her on. So Tiana, let's start with kind of how you got into copywriting and kind of what you're doing before it, because nobody really grows up thinking I want to be a copywriter when I'm an adult. I know you were doing a lot of interesting things before it, so let's start there.
Sure, yeah. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. This is like, it's pretty exciting to be able to tell my story after the winding path that we all go through to get here. So yeah, I definitely started in kind of left field. I actually went to acting school. And when I graduated that, I spent 7 years as a professional actor, just working on stage and auditioning. And that's a difficult lifestyle for sure. So I learned a lot, had a lot of interesting experiences, but at a certain point I realized like, oh man, this is not going to be the vehicle that gets me to the goals that I had, and my financial goals were growing. And I really, one of the big motivators was actually that I just wanted, I wanted to be able to afford rent in a cool condo. Like I really, because at the time I had just lived with like a bunch of roommates all the time. And that was like a big dream of mine, was just like, can I just live like downtown Toronto, right? So eventually I tried, a bunch of different things at the same time as acting, but eventually I just kind of like pulled the trigger and ditched my agent kind of suddenly and joined an accelerated boot camp program for user experience design, which is like a tech role, which was where I learned how to launch digital products, design, build, create digital products, and manage teams. And I did that for the next 3 years. And at first it was super, super cool. And it was crazy to me that I was like, oh my God, I didn't think I was like smart enough to be able to like have a salary. Like I didn't know that, that was like a mind-blowing experience for me. But by about year two, I was like, I just started to get really miserable and I felt very misaligned. And I didn't know what that feeling was, but I would like get up in the morning and just like dread going to work. And I remember like sitting in a park and having like full on anxiety attacks on Sunday nights because I just like so badly didn't want to do the work that I knew I had to do the next day. And, it was like I was working for this really cool company and I was surrounded by these really smart people who I learned a lot from. And so I really didn't know what was going on or like why I hated it so much. But I remember this one day at work, somebody on the team had brought in this YouTube video and they like pulled up their laptop and they played this like 7-minute video. And it was this kid who was a freelance videographer. And he was showing his life of like him traveling the world and making money and hanging out with his friends, and he loved what he did. And we're all kind of like hyped up and we're like huddled over the computer, we're watching this thing. And then one by one, like all of my colleagues just start dropping off and they start going like, oh yeah, but that kid's really lucky, but that's not actually possible. It's not possible to live that life. Or like, he must be so tired from traveling, or, there's no way he's actually making that amount of money. And their mindset issues, just like, they were all just like, this is not possible. And I was kind of the last one standing. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, oh no, I have to find a way to do that. Like that, if that's a possibility in this lifetime, I've got to find a way. And it was just so happened that at the time, the universe sort of served me this like amazing gift. My sister works in the industry as well, and I had no idea what she was doing. I knew she was like selling stuff online, and I was like, is she like scamming people online? Like I didn't really get it. But she had partnered on a health supplement with somebody, and his name is Mike Zhang, and he owned a health supplements company, and he just so happened to need somebody to help him manage his design, tech, and ops teams to launch these digital products. And so he said, you know, I really think you can do this. He believed in me a lot more than I believed in myself. And he painstakingly taught me the basics of copy. And he gave me this like Excel sheet of like 30 VSLs to transcribe and like all the books I needed to read, all the Facebook groups that I needed to join. And he really was like diligent about making sure that I had everything I needed to kind of like, you know, get started. And he even brought me to Vegas to like ASE, whatever that is. And I met a bunch of people and I kind of saw that the life was possible, right? So I did that at the same time as the 9 to 5 for a while. And then eventually he was like, okay, I think your copy is like good enough that with my guidance, like you can keep writing all of the VSLs and come on board as my marketing director and quit your 9 to 5. And so I did that. And that was at the start of, literally the start of COVID, that I quit my job on a Zoom call with my manager. And I was in the direct response world at that point.
So, okay, so let's go back to that. Starting around then, this is when you're making like 5K a month with the agency, writing copy. I'm assuming they're having you kind of just throwing everything at you. You're writing emails, you're writing long form. Is that kind of how it worked?
Yeah, I was right. Yeah, I was kind of writing everything, but our focus was long form VSL. So the really amazing part about that role, and I feel like just so grateful that this was the entry point, was that I wasn't just learning copy in a silo. I was learning the copy and how it fits in with all the other gears that make an offer work, that make a company profitable. And that really influences the way that I work now, the way that I work with business owners, and the way that I approach writing stuff. I really I go for results, not like amazing copy, you know? And that I think has been and continues to be a really huge advantage for me. And so it was, I mean, it was a lot of work. It was like a lot of team management stuff. And I was pretty like in the weeds with a lot of the launch stuff. I was like working with the developers, working with the designers, hiring contractors to do all this stuff, creating like SOPs for the team. And at the same time, writing all of the VSLs, but the VSL writing was the main focus of copy for me.
Okay, so you're doing that, you're getting better at copy. I'm assuming you're writing, I don't know, what was kind of your output then? Like, are you doing like one VSL a month? Like, what did that kind of look like?
Yeah, it was probably, I don't know how many VSLs I ended up writing for him over the 1.5 years, but like, maybe like, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6. And then we would try like different, we would try to optimize them. So I'd like write new leads and stuff. And then I'd write a bunch of, like, we tried like CPL pages, like all sorts of stuff. Like I really learned a lot of different types. And when I first launched stuff, like, man, they just bombed so hard. The first ones were just so bad. And now looking back, like I see why, but you just can't see it. It just doesn't make any sense in the beginning. So I really had to work through that. But by the end, like I know they're still running a couple of the offers, and when I left, they were converting around, I don't know, like 2% or something like that on affiliate. So so they weren't bad. So the outputs by the end were pretty, they were decent.
I mean, it's interesting, like you say that, but it's very, very, that first year as the copywriter is like where you're really like cranking stuff out is really tough, because you are just going to bomb a lot. It's just the way it is. I mean, nobody comes out of the gate just like hitting winners one after another. So yeah, that first year is tough, because maybe for every 5 things you write, you get one that does like decent.
Right.
And you're really dreading the whole time and doubting yourself, like, holy, what did I get into? Do I really have like any idea what I'm doing here? Like, that's tough.
Yeah. I felt that pretty hard. Definitely, like, right from the beginning, that imposter syndrome like sinks in pretty deep.
So let's talk about where this job went, because this is the really interesting thing for me. So you were at this job for what, 5 months? Or a year and a half, I mean?
Year and a half of working with this company. Yeah.
Year and a half. But okay, so then late 2021, they let you go. Kind of, was this just out of nowhere? Or did you see it coming? Like,
I didn't see it coming. But let me preface this by saying like this was the right decision for the company, and there's like it was a good call that they did this. It made sense for their goals. But yeah, definitely like blindsided me a bit. And the part that made it really difficult was that as I was like gaining confidence that this was going to be my path, and that I was like, okay, I want to get really good at copy. I really, this is the road I want to take. I started investing in myself. So I was only making 5K a month, but I was putting that all back into, what events can I go to? And I'm in Canada. So that meant traveling expenses and stuff, right? So I was going to these events, and you and Stefan were so, amazing to let me like hit some of those, when you did your CA tour, I stopped in there, just kind of like meeting people and trying to see what they're doing. How are they doing it? And eventually I decided to join CA. And that was like, I drained my bank account, like my savings account, to be able to do that. And I did. And really like a very short time after I had pressed send the money, I got a call from that company, and he just said, Tiana, you're doing great, and I've loved working with you, but like, I just don't need anybody in this position anymore. It just doesn't make sense for us to have this like marketing director role. So I gotta let you go. And I was I like, just to be frank, I was really quite devastated because I just didn't, I didn't have any income coming in, I didn't have any real prospects. And the biggest thing was that I just didn't know how to run a freelance copywriting business. And I thought it was something I was going to do in the future when I was ready, but it was like a little baby bird being like pushed out of the nest. And I was like, oh shit, like I have wings, I guess I have to find them, right? So I really like stumbled through that. And the only thing I had was like Copy Accelerator members and the CA Lights job board, which is for the people who are watching and don't know what that is, it's jobs are always posted there for people who are a member of Justin's Copy Accelerator. And there was a post there one day from Laura Catella, and she said Amber Spears, the legendary Amber Spears, who I really looked up to and look up to now, she needed a copywriter. She needed somebody to write her a sales page in exchange for a ticket to her mastermind in Cabo, where all of the top marketers in the world were all going to be hanging out. And I saw it, I saw the post, and I thought, that is a life-changing opportunity for somebody else. Like, I did not think that was something I even had a shot at. So I literally like closed my laptop, put it away, and I was like, I'll find another way in. But because of the relationships I had in Copy Accelerator, people started tagging me in the post, and then they started messaging me directly, and they were like, hey, Tiana, like, I really think you should apply for this thing. I think you would be great. Like, this seems really up your alley. And so purely based on their confidence in me, I applied. I did it. And I remember like staying up till 3 a.m., like crying, trying to write this like B2B sales letter, because I just like the sample, because I had never written in that niche. I just didn't know what I was doing. And frankly, I was like embarrassed to send the sample in because I just had so little confidence in my copy. But I sent it in, and the next day Laura reached out and she said I got the gig. And then so like a week later, I was at a swim up pool bar drinking raspberry margaritas with like the top copywriters in the world. Like, I was hanging out with like Perry Belcher and Mike Geary, Ed Scow, Amber Spears, Emily Lark, Brad Howard. Like, I just learned so much being in that space. And then from that moment on, it was like the doors really just swung wide open, because I had done so much prep for this moment, right? I had all the support of CA. I had worked on my copy so much that as these opportunities were coming up, I was actually ready for them, and I could actually take them on. And at the same time, it was like I got this other amazing client who Carly Donovan of Cinderella Solution, which was this offer that did amazing on ClickBank forever. And Emily Lark hired me for a few emails, and then Mike Geary and Ed Scow brought me on retainer with Iroli, which was massive for me, and super exciting. And then, yeah, it was just like the momentum just, just took off from there. I got hired by Paleo Hacks recently. I'm working with this cool company called Happy Mammoth, who I absolutely adore. Got some cool freelance gigs. Yeah, and it's been pretty amazing since that point.
Yeah, you're on fire. It's really interesting thinking back to that, because I'm like, in my head while you're telling the story, I'm curious if they had not let you go, where you would be right now.
Yeah, and I think he knew that too, like because I had grown so close with Mike, because he was such a mentor, like in the beginning. And again, like I said, he really believed in me and believes in me. And I think at that point he was also like, this is a good thing. Like this is good for you. I think you need to be backed into a corner a bit. And he always said this thing like, you have to build the plane before you jump. And I think he saw that I had built the plane, and he was like, you gotta go for it now.
It is interesting how many times I've seen similar stories where it's like something that seems like my life is completely falling apart and is going to ruin everything turns into one of the best things that could kind of ever happen to you. I had a kind of similar one when, like, 2010, I was in a position almost kind of similar where I was just kind of like, I would say I was like coasting. Like I was doing like 5K a month. And I was just kind of, I got pretty comfortable with where I was, and I wasn't just like pushing myself at all. And then my girlfriend at the time broke up with me kind of out of the blue, who we had been dating for like 3 years. And I was like planning on proposing to this girl. And so the whole thing falls apart and my whole like reality shattered. And then I had one client at the time who let me go too. So all that happened in like the span of a week, and I'm just like freaking out, thinking my life is over. I literally thought about moving back in with my parents, and like I was gonna get like a real job, and it was a bad time. But out of that came basically similar to what you did, where like my back was up against the wall, and I was like, all right, like I had been sitting on this offer that I created for like 6 months and was just procrastinating like crazy. And I finally, like literally like 2 days later, like I had it up running. I was like running ads to it, and within like 2 or 3 months, like it was working. And that thing went on to make, I think I made like 200 grand that year, like myself, from that. But like that would have never happened had, like, if that client had kept me on, if my girlfriend had stayed, it probably would have never happened. So it is interesting how like sometimes these really amazing life-changing things come out of pretty much shitty situations.
Yeah, definitely. I would say there's like, it's not really like a passive thing though. When those breakdowns happen, there's sort of two routes you can go. It can be a breakthrough and you can see the opportunity in that, or you can fall apart and, for example, move back in with your parents and just be like, I'm giving up, right? And I think that's what separates people is like, yeah, you got to see the open doors. There's luck everywhere, but you have to see where the opportunity is and where you can take it.
I agree. So let's talk about kind of where you're at now. So you met all these people at the Mimosa Mastermind. You've met a bunch of people through Copy Accelerator. You're picking up really top level clients and working with them. What's kind of your work look like with them now? Are you writing like long form stuff? Are you doing emails? Bunch of both? Like, what's all that look like?
Yeah, to be honest, it's really a bunch of both. It's a lot of sales pages, optimizations of those sales pages, releads, emails, a lot of Facebook ads. It is kind of all over the map. Yeah.
Awesome. And so it's really interesting to me income wise, because that's a huge jump that you made in what, basically 6 months, 7 months. I mean, I think that's really a good point to kind of share with everybody, that like she was doing 5K before. And we see this a lot with copywriters, where agencies are great for stability and kind of like a secure check a lot of times. And they're also good for getting you like a lot of experience really quickly, because they usually have like a ton of work that they need. There's a lot of copywriters, once they hit that kind of intermediate level, which you were at, that you don't realize that you could be making probably triple what you were at the agency. But it's a big jump, because it's like there's a lot of safety and security in working with an agency. But then it's like, okay, now I got to run out, create my whole freelance business, have to get clients. Like, am I even any good at copywriting? There's a lot of stuff that creeps in and holds you back with that.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of mindset stuff for sure that has to be worked through.
I'm curious now as a freelancer, what's some of like the things that you've kind of come up against uh in terms of maybe it could be mindset and kind of believing in yourself, or maybe it's just how to run an actual freelancing business, send invoices, stuff like that. What's stuff you've come up to that you kind of realize you weren't totally prepared for?
Um, yeah, my big focus right now really has become the mindset stuff, because I am recognizing that I've kind of always had this like imposter syndrome thing, maybe some like confidence blocks there, like things that were holding me back. But in everything else I've done so far, I've been able to kind of like skirt around them and like work with them. But now in these next steps, it's really like coming to the surface. And that's what happens if you don't deal with this stuff. It eventually will be like a full block and actually like stop you. And I think that now's the point where I actually have to like, obliterate those issues to move through it. And for me, a lot of it actually comes down to like the process of things, because it's like so amazing to take on these clients and like working with these companies. Like I just look up to these guys so much, and I just like admire what they're doing. And and on like the surface, it brings me so much joy to do that. But then I've noticed that like sometimes I'll just be so stressed out and I won't be like, I'm sitting writing copy and I'm like not enjoying it. And I'm like, why is that happening? It's because of like the stress and these mindset issues and the imposter syndrome. So it's actually like that process, right? And so I'm trying to learn how to enjoy the life and accept the life that I've now built, right? I think Stefan talked about this at the last Copy Accelerator in Scottsdale, where it was like, you have to accept the freedom that comes with this career. And like, you actually have to like accept, like, I'm in Mexico right now and I'm like hanging out with these other copywriters, like, this is like an amazing life, but it's like, yeah, you got to enjoy it, and the second you enjoy it, like every time I'm happy, like my copy is like so much better. And it just, yeah, everything just becomes better. So that's really a focus that I've had to think about a lot, and something that I didn't really anticipate happening. I kind of had this illusion that I was like, oh, I'll get these amazing clients one day and then I'll be so happy. It's like, you have to actually like work on that happiness.
Yeah, I think it's a big point. I remember I had kind of similar beliefs with like income levels where it's like, well, once I hit six figures, I'll be happy. Or once I have $1 million company, I'll be happy. And it's
Yeah.
never, nothing really changes, honestly. Like it might give you like temporary happiness, but like a couple days it fades away. That's why I'm such a big believer. Like I love the fact that you guys are in Mexico right now, kind of living the laptop lifestyle, so to speak. Um, because it's so, especially as you get better and you there's a lot more demand on your time. It's super easy to turn into that person that's working 14 hours a day, writing copy nonstop, and you just burn yourself out and you really have no interest in what you're doing anymore. I mean, I've been there multiple times. I mean, I see it over and over again. So I do love that you're kind of espousing the work-life balance and enjoying the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, definitely trying to figure out where that balance is for me specifically, and what's going to work. Yeah.
Have you had issues with kind of workaholic, just like working too much?
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely always been like kind of that's always been true. Like one of the big messages, like even when I was a kid, like it was always like, oh, you're so hard on yourself. You're like, you don't have to work so hard, right? Actually, I think you and I had talked about this super briefly, because we had like a similar the way we grew up, like both of us. I think your parents are entrepreneurs too, right? Have your
No, my
parents?
parents are
Oh,
the
okay.
furthest thing from us.
Oh, really? Okay, so it was like manual labor. It was
Yes,
like,
very like blue collar, work in a factory kind of thing.
got it. Okay. So yeah, my parents are entrepreneurs, and they grow tree seedlings for reforestation, which is like very like hands-on labor, right? And they work so hard. Like I actually, even all the guys in direct response, like I don't know anybody who genuinely works as hard as long as they do. And so my belief system around that was like, oh, work has to kind of hurt a little bit, or otherwise you're not working hard enough, right? Um, And that's something that that I need to break a bit, because I think sometimes like I'll work extra hours out of guilt. Like I'll be like, I have to keep working just to prove to myself that I'm actually deserve the clients, deserve the
Right.
money. Yeah, but sometimes, sometimes you can write copy fast actually, and
It's
that's
very
okay too.
true.
Yeah.
Yes, very true. So one last thing I want to touch on is kind of what's the future here? Like, so you got all these amazing clients, you've made this huge step in the last 6 months. What's kind of the next 6 to 12 months look like for you? Do you have any bigger plans? Do you want to keep doing what you're doing? What's that kind of look like?
Yeah, right now, definitely focusing on copy is like my greatest priority, working through the mindset stuff. I think that's really important. But I've been taking some baby steps towards and kind of just trying to lay the groundwork for having my own offer, because even when I entered the industry, that was something that I really looked up to Mike at the time, and Amber, like all these people who I initially met. I was like, oh shit, like that's really what I want to do. And I think that just sounds very exciting to me. I feel pulled towards that. So I'm trying to figure out what the best way is into that. And so I'm asking a lot of questions when I meet people. How did you start? What did you do? Where should I start? And I've made some movement there. So it's pretty exciting and it's good. So I don't know what the exact timeline of that looks like, because I recognize it's a lot of work. But that's the goal for me. That's definitely the dream.
Awesome. So one last question I'm gonna leave you with, which I ask everybody who's on here. If somebody was watching this and considering joining Copy Accelerator, what would you tell them about your experience so far?
In Copy Accelerator, yeah, I would say that it probably feels scary to send over the money, and it can feel like a big risk, but it is the community that you will find there is your opportunity. And the imposter syndrome that you feel right now, that community is actually like the best possible way to alleviate that and work through it. And that's how you're going to grow. So I think that I know how scary it feels, but it's actually an incredibly safe investment in the long run.
Love that. Awesome. So we're gonna wrap this up. Really appreciate you coming on, Tiana. I mean, your story is honestly amazing, which is why I wanted to get you on, especially because I've said this before. Like, this is an industry that's like 90% dudes. So the fact that you are thriving and excelling in a very male-dominated industry is amazing, and really a big inspiration. Every time I have women on, it is a huge inspiration to all the other women entrepreneurs and copywriters out there. So really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's pretty awesome to share the story. So thanks for giving me the platform.